His 32nd birthday, one man had marched a single army across 2 million square miles of the Earth's surface, subduing the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen. This is a photograph of the ruins of the city of Pella. In 356 BC, it was the capital of Macedon, a northern kingdom that the sophisticated city-states of mainland Greece dismissed as an uncultured, barbarian backwater. Alexander was raised to believe he was descended from heroes and deities. This ancient silver coin depicts him wearing the curved ram's horn of the god Zeus Ammon. He genuinely believed he was a living god, destined to rule everything the sun touched. He viewed physical walls and outnumbering armies and political crises as personal invitations from the gods to test his own endurance. At 12 years old, a horse trader presented his father, King Philip, with a massive black stallion named Bucephalus. The trader demanded 13 talents of silver, an exorbitant price, but the animal was so aggressive that no grown man in the royal guard could mount him. The prince watched the stallion's reaction to the ground. He saw the animal was lashing out at the dark, flickering shape of its own shadow shifting across the dirt. Alexander grabbed the reins and physically turned Bucephalus to face the sun. With the shadow cast safely out of sight behind the horse, the animal calmed down enough for the boy to climb onto its back. 8 years later, King Philip was assassinated by one of his own bodyguards. Overnight, the 20-year-old Alexander inherited the throne, and neighboring tribes and Greek states immediately revolted in all directions, assuming the young king would be easy to brush aside. He responded by executing his domestic rivals and marching an army south to level the rebellious city of Thebes. With Greece forcefully unified under his direct control, he turned his attention east, toward the ultimate prize, the Persian Empire. Look at this map. In 334 BC, the Persian Empire was a superpower, stretching from Egypt to India. Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Anatolia with an army of about 50,000 men, a fraction of the forces the Persian king Darius III could field. This diagram shows his primary tactical advantage, the Macedonian phalanx. This was a dense block of infantry armed with sarissas, pikes up to 20 feet long. It functioned like an organic shield wall covered in spikes, capable of stopping a massed cavalry charge in its tracks. You can see this tactics chaos in the Alexander mosaic. At Issus, dense phalanx lines absorbed Persian attacks, allowing Alexander's elite cavalry to puncture their flanks. Aiming directly for the Persian king, Alexander charged. Darius abandoned his army and fled, sparking a mass rout. During this campaign, Alexander arrived in Phrygia, home to the Gordian knot. According to local lore, this incredibly complex knot secured an ancient ox cart. Prophecy dictated that whoever could untie it would become ruler of Asia. Unable to find the ends of the rope to unravel it, Alexander simply drew his sword and hacked the knot in half. This photograph shows the remains of Tyre, a wealthy port city. In 332 BC, citizens retreated to an offshore island fortress and refused to surrender. Alexander didn't have a fleet capable of taking the island, so he ordered his army to build a land bridge. Under constant missile fire, his engineers dumped stone and timber into the ocean for 7 months, physically extending the shoreline out to the island. When the siege towers finally rolled across the completed causeway and the walls were breached, Alexander's patience was gone. His soldiers massacred thousands of the city's inhabitants and sold tens of thousands of survivors, mostly women and children, into slavery. The slaughter at Tyre sent a clear message to the rest of the Mediterranean. If an ocean could not protect a city from the Macedonian army, no physical barrier on earth could. By 326 BC, the Greeks had marched over 2,000 miles eastward, reaching the Hydaspes River in modern-day Pakistan. Here they faced torrential monsoon rains, a severely flooded river, and the waiting army of King Porus on the opposite bank. Porus deployed a weapon the Greeks were entirely unprepared to handle: heavily armored Indian war elephants. The massive animals threatened to crush the tight infantry formations, and their scent alone was enough to panic the Greek horses. Alexander divided his forces, using his mobile cavalry to outflank the Indian lines. As the fighting collapsed inward, the injured elephants panicked and stampeded back through their own infantry, breaking Porus's ranks. Defeating a highly organized army utilizing megafauna in a tropical monsoon proved that Alexander's tactical logic could adapt to any terrain against any weapon. After a decade of constant warfare, disease, and marching away from home, his troops finally reached their breaking point. They refused to take another step toward the Ganges. Forced to turn back, Alexander led his army through the punishing Gedrosian Desert. The retreat took a devastating toll, with thousands of his men dying of starvation, dehydration, and heat exhaustion in the sand. Then, his closest childhood companion and trusted general, Hephaestion, died of a sudden fever. Alexander reacted with blinding grief, ordering an extreme period of mourning and crucifying the physician who failed to save his friend. The desert losses and the death of Hephaestion stripped away the veneer of divine invincibility. For the first time, the young king was confronted with human realities he couldn't conquer with a sword or a brilliant flanking maneuver. This excavation photograph shows the ruins of the ancient city of Babylon. Here, in 323 BC, Alexander was struck by a rapidly worsening fever that left him paralyzed and unable to speak. Modern historians and toxicologists have debated the cause for decades. Theories range from West Nile virus and malaria to acute alcohol withdrawal, or even assassination by poison. At just 32 years of age, Alexander died. Because he left behind a sprawling, continent-spanning empire without a clear heir, his leading generals immediately tore the territory apart in a series of brutal succession wars. Alexander spent his life attempting to physically dismantle every barrier the ancient world put in front of him. He bridged oceans and erased borders, yet his collapse in Babylon served as a reminder that even the most relentless will eventually hit a hard stop.